Hey guys, it's me Dwivedi, and you are listening on Extended Reality Developers of India. And I'm really excited today because this is Independence Day, of course. And we are going to host someone who's from India and living in Canada. And she is an amazing animation specialist. She is an award winning designer. So, without any further delays, let me invite her. And what's special about this conversation and what's special about this show today is going to be her approach to transforming the Indian culture with technology, with virtual reality. Yeah.
Thank you. And happy Independence Day to everybody.
Hey, everybody, happy Independence Day. And Priya, let's start with your introduction. Okay. I spoke about you very briefly, but people would love to know that what you do, how you came to Canada, how you started into design, everything.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll start. Okay, so my I did my undergraduate in animation. It was a one of a kind Bachelor of Science in Animation that I dared to take up in which I kind of like completed in 2010 successfully, and that helped me kind of understand the principles of animation and 2D and 3D. And then I started off working as a 3D animator for a couple of years, and then uh, I think after 3, 4 years, I kind of started having an interest in applying those principles to design, and design was picking up then. So I joined Accenture, which was kind of like again like not a planned decision, but then I kind of like went forward with it, and then I saw the applications of I was able to kind of experiment and use like motion design and learn a bit about user experience design, which was kind of new, like 8 to 9 years ago. And then I just went with the flow, but I always had an inclination to pursue a master's degree even while I was there. So I was looking into different options. Unfortunately, back then in design, I did not really find a lot. Like I was trying to get into NID, but that kind of that didn't work out. And then I was like, oh, and I was also like trying to understand what I'm really interested in. So I realized that I have an interest in emerging technology. And back then, there were not a lot of options in India for me to pursue at a master's level, considering the experience that I already had. So I started looking for options abroad, and
And
came
which
across a
year was this?
um, like when I started, like I moved to Toronto, Canada in 2019. So I started exploring options almost 2 years. Like the preparation was almost 2 years for this whole thing. So I started building my portfolio because I had work like scattered, but I had to put it together. So I made my portfolio. I made a website and I put all the projects there, and then I started researching about universities, and then the whole application. I started applying a year before in 2018, and then and every application, every university has its own application criteria. It needs like some of them need a research proposal, some of them need a statement of purpose, and apart from your portfolio and your work and your interest and everything. So I had to spend some time working on that, and then I applied, and then I was kind of waiting, and then I got through all the ones that I applied, and then I chose OCAD, and I chose the Master of Design in Digital Futures, which is I wasn't really sure how it's going to turn out, but that's something I needed also, like having this like a little bit of ambiguity and a little bit of space to explore the realm of digital and future applications of these technologies. So I think that was kind of that sounded like a fun avenue for me. And then I moved here, and I'm so glad I took this decision. I came here because I was able to learn so much over the past couple of years, and now I'm kind of here looking at ways to apply these technologies into real world life situations and how these can be used to make experiences better. So that's where I'm at right now. I've, I I did a thesis, a Master of Design thesis that we are going to like deep dive into later, I guess, which is called Activating Indofuturism. So I can talk about that later. but that was like a year-long thesis that I did, and I was researching, and then, yeah, I gave some talks and stuff as well. I think last month I spoke at the IDP camp at NYU, and I presented my thesis at the VRTO, Virtual Reality and Augmented Reality International Conference. So I've been like trying to spread the word through these little, and I'm excited to be here now because I'm so excited to reach the Indian audience with my work. So thank you for this opportunity, Avi.
Awesome. We are really pleased to host you, and would love to know about your first interaction with virtual reality and augmented reality, and what was your expression towards it, and what you thought, since you already had so many years of experience with design. What was your initial thoughts when you looked into a virtual reality class?
I I was just fascinated. Actually, so we did not really have a class that was dedicated to VR. This is more like these are the technologies you have and you can learn what you want. It was more like a self-learning process, but I was really fascinated the first time I saw one of my cohorts, like the second year, from the second year, was working on a VR experience and was like wearing the headset and like doing actions, and I was like, wow, that looks so cool. And yeah, so I kind of like got fascinated by just I think the whole idea of like wearing a headset and then transforming the space around you into, it could be anything. But yeah, as I kind of like got into it, I got to learn about the principles that you also need to kind of like understand and follow before you design for these. For example, I think one of the most important ones was that you need to consider is that you need to give autonomy to the participant of where the participant wants to move. So if because you still kind of apply the real world principles of like moving and giving the participant the control, because a lot of times I've seen games and stuff where they just kind of like move you through the space
Hmm.
without your consent. You're just kind of like, so that kind of like causes this thing called VR sickness, which causes like, it's like motion
Nausea.
sickness. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's something like a good designer I think should keep in mind is to give the autonomy to the, so if you look at my the work that I've done in all of them, it's like the user has with the hand controllers can decide to teleport or move to a different space or just like take these decisions. So I think that's one of the crucial learnings that I
Hmm.
think that I would like to share.
So VR could easily take control over you. So you have to design your simulation in such a way that you are controller of that simulations,
Yeah.
and they are not controlling you.
Because it's I don't know. It's also like a level of comfort because if the participant is, you're kind of designing this whole. Like I was looking at a TV series kind of that was designed in VR, and I was hoping to have this like interesting experience where you have this whole 3D space and you can move around, and the show is designed in such a way. But it was mostly like very similar to just being like a video where things are moving around you and you just feel like you're moving in the space, but you don't have control over it. So that kind of like made me a little disoriented being in that space. So, and I didn't really understand the purpose why VR was used for that medium, because that's something you
Hmm.
can also do in video. So you need to actually understand, actually think about why you're using this medium and what is the purpose. So I had to be very conscious about also using, when I was creating, when I was designing for it, be very conscious about using this meaningfully instead of just using it because it's kind of cool and
Yeah. So
you
I
know.
spoke about the same thing in last podcast as well with Drake. I spoke that how the virtual reality headset can become an overhead, and a creator has to think about the very use case which he is building, how virtual reality can take advantage of that and not become the overhead. Because if you can do it on a 2D screen, just do it on a 2D screen. Why you want to bring
Yeah,
VR unless it's not giving that sort of value, that sort of experience and interactivity? That's what we need from VR.
exactly. I totally agree because maybe like just having it in
Yep.
VR might attract audiences to come in, but the experience might hurt them. So you need to be conscious about how you design using the tool. It's very important.
Absolutely. So, talking about your work, you are taking inspiration from Indian culture and you call it Indo-futurism. So, would love to know something about this.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, so this was, I think, back, uh, I think in the winter of 2020, when I was having this class, Possible Futures, I learned about this concept of Afrofuturism. I'm not sure if that's something that I was not familiar with it when I was back in India. So I kind of was fascinated by it. So I can explain that. Like, I don't want to, I can explain that using the premise of Black Panther. I don't want to say that it's restricted to just
Yep.
that. Afrofuturism is very, it's huge, and it involves like that was a mainstream commercial kind of application of that, I would say. But there are like musicians, and there are writers, and there are um, uh, artists who kind of make work in this kind of like genre. No, in this, it's like a discipline. It's like an academic discipline also. So yeah, I was inspired by that because what it does is that it places, like, because the Africans were colonized in the past, it places them in a future without a history of colonization. So you imagine your timeline without being colonized, and how it would have been, and how you would have thrived, and how you would have been in charge basically of your situation, and all the decisions that your future would be an outcome of the decisions of your own race and of your own people, without any colonial influence. So it's kind of complicated. This is like the academic explanation of it. But what happens when you do that is that you kind of look at it from a different lens, where it's like, oh, if this had not happened, this could have been like this. And then you start kind of feeling empowered in the present, where you are like, okay, I can still be like in charge of my present. And uh, that kind of inspired me, because and looking at a lot, because the present day situations in India, the political landscape, and a lot of like the moving away from cultural. Like for me, like I think it was my personal journey where I was like kind of feeling a little aloof from my cultural influence. And I thought maybe this could be an opportunity for me to understand that and to revive that. And also because I'm learning this, like, in this very interesting uh, field, and I'm learning emerging technologies, maybe apply that to explore this. And I think that could be also a way for the youth of Indian descent to also relate to these things, because maybe like giving it a little bit of a which is like at odds from the cultural side of it, which is traditional. This is kind of contemporary, to give it a contemporary twist, and then present it. Just a second, I'm getting a call.
No worries.
So okay, so yeah, so presenting it with this refreshed, I was not sure how it would turn out, but I thought maybe like experiment presenting these ideas using a contemporary look and feel with purpose would probably help me understand these things better. And it kind of succeeded. So yeah, so that's what Indo-futurism is. So and it's more complex, because I kind of like, as I progress through the research, I realized there's a lot of things that, so I use it to not only revive lost cultural uh, not lost, but like disappearing cultural aspects, like the Sanskrit language. But I talk about different issues through cultural influences, like issues of the present, and giving like some cultural references that kind of help you understand, or kind of like trigger these thoughts in people's heads. That I know it's kind of like, it might sound a bit vague right now, but probably when you see some of the work that I'm talking about, that might make sense. So, but I kind of like try to handle, not just like talk about the future and the past, but also to kind of talk about present day social issues through this, because I feel it's time now when designers and artists also participate and try to like take charge of these issues and try to resolve them. So this was my way of kind of approaching it based on my capacity as a designer and artist. So yeah, it's a little complex, but I would urge everyone to kind of go and visit my website and just kind of take a look at it, or just look at the manifesto. I made so what I did was I summarized the whole research into a 4 minutes video. Yeah, that's my website. And you can, there's my thesis page if you scroll. Yes. And then you can just go to the video. So this is like a manifesto which kind of summarizes these. So what I've done is I've placed it in a future. I've placed these 5 different artifacts that I've created in a speculative future where I'm like, okay, this happens in the future, and that kind of like gets you thinking about the present day issues. So and I summarize
Imagine a glorious Indo-future world, an alternative future timeline where India has thrived and was never colonized. A world that speaks to the difficult issues of our actual present, with both utopian optimism and satirical critiques, while addressing the needs of this fictional future. On the coast of Mumbai, where you would see the gateway of India, a testimony to British colonialism, we have the gateway to the world. Using advanced technology and the brilliance of its people, in this alternate future just a few years from now, India has crafted this Indian-inspired architectural marvel that transports people and goods anywhere in the world in the blink of an eye. 50 years on, in this alternate enlightened future, are you still finding strange hands groping you? Fear no more with a sari like Draupadi's, a nano fabric that self-replicates as it is unwound. Leave your worries of being manhandled behind. With a sari like Draupadi's, the wearer will never be disrobed. Looking forward 30 years, are you still not satisfied with your skin color? Here, in Skin Lab, anyone can choose how they look. Want to look more fair? You can. Just use this simple device to pick your perfect tone and let the technicians do their work. A few short decades later, India is exploring the stars. Indian ships are on the way to bring brave adventurers to new frontiers. Of course, some alien life may have to be displaced to make room. These difficult decisions have been made easier through a game. Colonizer is here for the Indian public, to have their say in choosing which aliens to keep, and which to remove, from the glorious new space territory. Jumping ahead a century, we see a find of ancestral proportions. Ancient recordings stored in an archaic technology have been decoded by our brilliant scientists. What seems like a synergy of moving typography and a speech unheard for centuries.
Asmi Solpakale
An
Satyamai
ancient language has been reincarnated. Though none still alive understand what it means, this symphony of words and movements has enchanted a generation. So, what does imagining an Indo-future, or Indo-futurism do? For you, and for Indian people everywhere. How does imagining a future help anyone or anything? Indo-futurism is here to empower the Indian diaspora to respond to colonialism, and address its continuing impacts in post-colonial times. Indo-futurism calls for artists, designers, scholars, writers, technologists, creators of Indian descent, to form a community of Indo-futurists. The lens of Indo-futurism imagines an alternative future for India without its inglorious colonial past, in order to help Indian people reorient their post-colonial, post-apocalyptic present. Indo-futurism reclaims aspects of India's pre-colonial culture that were lost through colonialism by reincarnating them in an Indo-future. Indo-futurism highlights the pressing social conditions in contemporary India by critiquing prejudices prevalent within Indian communities. Alongside the idealistic ambitions found in other post-colonial futurisms, which it seeks inspiration from, Indo-futurism offers its own unique characteristics, illustrated by critical and dark narratives that allow discursive interventions. Indo-futurism refuses to recreate the fabled, lived, golden bird era, as this kind of a utopian depiction is not useful in addressing the social situations that beset the present-day reality of India. Indo-futurism speaks to a diaspora that shares a relatively uniform cultural experience, creating room for a majority of Indian descendants that might be spread across the world to join in. Indofuturism is a heretofore underexplored space for Indo-futurists to delve into and give Indian people a face in the future. Indo-futurism inspires a feeling of belongingness in any who are of Indian descent, and sets the stage for these people to creatively engage with the potential of Indian culture.
Wow, it's a beautiful site. There are plenty of good works here as well. So you did some amazing work there. I wish my site was this beautiful. Amazing. Yeah. So I can see plenty of projects there. We'll come to these ones as well.
Yes.
But let me first talk about Indofuturism. Okay. So as you already mentioned, the African futurism and how they are bringing these things back and making it more relevant for current generation. Similarly,
Yes.
we have seen how Israelis are bringing back Hebrew. We have seen how Arabic futurism is going on, and what they are doing in Dubai. We can see how China is making their buildings, and they are taking all the spiritual knowledge they have, and they are incorporating that into the very architecture, so that it remains for hundreds of years. So we can see every culture requires these sort of modernization, and it's the need of the time, because the way these culture communicate to us is written in form of textbooks. A newer generation is not that much into it, so maybe we can just help them getting their answers from these texts and bringing them into a new format, a new medium, a new ways. And you mentioned how artists, painters, writers, everybody, movie creators, anybody who's in artistic job can bring this very agenda of Indo-futurism and bring it forward and make it a narrative around, and bring elements from it, take inspiration from it, because the culture is so rich that so many things could be done. For example, the Draupadi sari you make has such a beautiful feminism sort of message in there, that it's not anyone could touch you. A woman is not anyone's property. It's not the whole story was there. It's strong.
Yeah. I think that was like, I did user testing as well after I made these, but I had to do them virtually because we were in the pandemic. But also, it was an advantage that I could connect with people from India who kind of relate to some of these, like these, the things that I'm critiquing. So. And like I'm not really, so some of them are like, you know what, the sari should have a shock so that people know that it's not, so I was like, I really don't want to like create an aggressive violent kind of messaging, but people were that passionate about it, and they feel about it that strongly. But I was just like, the absurdity, the issue has been ignored for so long. Like the security of women and at-risk people has been an issue, a challenge for so many years, and it's been kind of like ignored over the years. And like some of the issues that are probably not that important are highlighted to just keep people away from the things that are actually affecting people. So I was like, this has reached to such a height that somebody had to come up with this invention of this sari that is never ending. And it's just like, that's what it has come to, and it's so absurd. But because of the absurdity, it kind of makes, because of the speculative design of this fabric, and it kind of makes you come back and think about like, oh my God, this is actually like something that we need to take on and address at this time. So that's basically what my intent is, where I'm trying to like create these disruptive kind of inventions and put them in the future, and we'll make that kind of retrospect and think about what the present is and how it's affecting everybody, and how you probably it's time for you to step up.
Yeah. So I'm also working on a project called Bhagavad Gita VR. So we are recreating Bhagavad Gita in virtual reality. The target is to complete all 700 shlokas and bring it into a new visualization format for the newer generation. So that's something what I'm doing, and in that research I thought it's going to be really easy and I'm going to complete it in like 5 months or something. But when I started working on it, the entire research is I have did like I guess I'm on my fifth or sixth sitting on just reading Bhagavad Gita entirely, and from various resources, because each and every word could have several meanings in it, and the way of interpretation could be so different at certain levels. It guides you through all sort of formats of how to reach the ultimate truth. It literally talks about quantum physics. It literally talks about parallel universes. Everything is there.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I can relate to it because for one of the artifacts that I created was using was highlighting the Sanskrit language.
Yep.
And how in depth it is. And like I did not go to it to that extent that you have been, but I kind of like had my brief exploration with it. So initially I wanted to like depict Sanskrit using a contemporary language in a way that would make people think about, oh, this is a cultural heritage that we need to consider keeping alive. I was initially thinking to probably take, so we have there have been developments of AI, which you kind of type a sentence and it completes it, makes a paragraph out of it based on the text that you have typed. So my initial idea was to use sentences from the Vedas and then use the AI to generate and see what happens, and then get people curious about that. But and for that, I would need a translator from Sanskrit to English, and because I don't understand Sanskrit, I kind of like can read it because the script is similar to Hindi Marathi, so I can read it. And then I looked up and I realized that there is no such internet, like on the internet, no option to translate Sanskrit to English. And I was like, oh my God, I realized that there is I was hoping for like Google Translate, but no. So I was like, wow, it's probably reached to a level where it's not, if something doesn't have a presence on the internet, it's like, I don't know for how many more generations it will probably survive. So
what we don't know about Hindi has taken, it's the national language, not national language. I would say there are 15 to 18 national languages. Hindi is mostly spoken language in India. So there is one thing about Hindi, that it's relatively the newest, one of the newest languages. It's just very very recent. It started in early 1900s, and prior to that there were so many languages being spoken. And when English ruler came, their idea was that if we have to rule it, we have to communicate better. If we have to communicate better, we have to focus on fewer languages, because so many versatility of languages is there. So then they came up with Hindi and Urdu. And Hindi and Urdu became were inspired from Devanagari and Farsi text. So that's how Hindi came into place in early 1900s. So it's very very new, and it has taken over. And I recently saw a video about how the Hindi is eating literally so many other languages. So when a language dies, the entire culture of that which relates to that particular language dies. So many concepts which are original to that language itself. For example, the very word Atma does not have a translation in any other language. So Atma has the meaning Atma belongs to is very different from the meaning soul or spirit belongs. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is different. It's not the same. If you have to go closest possible, you can write it as self, not as spirit. Okay, the closest you can get. When the one language dies, the entire concept, the entire history of that particular culture dies. So the way you have glamorized, or I would say highlighted, the very language, the Sanskrit language there, I just loved your work. And that's when I saw that first, I first decided that okay, she must be on XR podcast. Whenever I'm doing the second season, she's gonna be the earliest speaker. So that's how I contacted you.
Yeah, I remember that. And then that was something because we were in the pandemic and we shot it at home. That was literally, I put a curtain, not a curtain, a bed sheet as the background, a maroon bed sheet, not even green, because there's a peak of the lockdown. And I was able to get this, the volumetric video capturing device called the Kinect. So that was the one that I used to capture the depth. And so it takes a video capture as well as depth capture. So I use that, and just like whatever instruments I had at home, like I made a prop. It was the poem that I used was about the day. So I just used a pan lid and I put a paper on it to just make it like the sun, to kind of like key it out separately, just a different color. So just like makeshift arrangement at home, and I shot that. And then for the beta, I collaborated with Tanvir Alam. He is a Kathak artist from Toronto, and I was able to connect with network and connect with other Indians here, and I was able to get his contact, and he was happy to kind of collaborate with me on it. And so I kind of sent him the translation of the verse, and then I was like, your interpretation as an artist of this verse. So we had like several. He made like these beautiful gestural renditions to it using Kathak, and then that was the final version of it. That was in this video that you also shared. So it was really beautiful, the whole experience, and the way it. And I was so mesmerized by the output itself. Was so nice, and with my mother's voice, like the narration is in my mom's voice. So yeah, that was another story. I was trying to do like a text to speech for Sanskrit, and I realized that I won't be able to do that because there is like not many options for that. So I was talking to my mom about it, and I'm like, I don't know. And then she was like, I can read it, but I don't know the meaning. So I also kind of realized that my mom is able to read it, but she's not able to translate the meaning, and I cannot even read it. So it's just reducing with like every generation. But she was kind enough to lend her voice to it, and I was able to use that. And then Tanvir's gestural performance, it just like, and also I added an interactivity. I think there's also this aspect of interactivity which kind of makes the user actively participate in that experience, which kind of sends across the messaging more effectively rather than the user just being passively watching. So in this performance as well, when you wear the headset, the closer you go to the language, the letters kind of get they intensify, and so it kind of also gives this messaging of like when you kind of stay in touch with the language, it's like, and when you move away from it, it's kind of diminishing. So it's like just giving that layer of messaging, but that I thought was interesting as well.
Awesome. So you did volumetric capture with Connect. Now we have so many other tools of volumetric captures. There are photogrammetric scanners. There are iPhone lidars. There are several ways of doing that, and it's becoming more and more. So what do you think about this volumetric capture technology? Intel has built entire farms, a football size volumetric capture unit where they used to do all this sort of movie and recording, and everything is in heavy big formats of data, 3D pixels, which they call voxels. And so what do you think about volumetric capture technology, and what is the future of it? What is your opinion on this?
I think I'm most fascinated by the aesthetic of it, the volumetric capture, which is like little perfect, little imperfect. You still kind of see the person, the form of the person or the thing, but it's kind of imperfect. So it's kind of like, so I like to play around with that aspect of it. That's what I've mostly like been doing. I'm also, I am collaborating with another friend from here who's a filmmaker, who's a Canadian filmmaker who is using volumetric capture. So we did like a test shoot with her the other day, and she's using photogrammetry to create the environment and embed the volumetric capture. So I think that playing around with these aesthetics of like the different, like photogrammetry has its own, again, it's kind of perfect, but it still has its imperfections. Just like, I think that itself is an art, and what you do with it is like another thing. So photogrammetry is something I'm also going to be. So me and a collaborator, we won like 2 public art grants to create public arts in Toronto. So we did one last year using photogrammetry. And it was again the peak of the pandemic. So we just used our phones to go around these historic sites in Toronto and just take captures from all sides. And then we were just like, let's see what comes out of it. And then it was really beautiful and fascinating in its own way. And we created like mishmash of these different spaces. And so I think it gives a very artistic and a very unique, and it's always like different depending on the way the person captures. So it has like, I feel it's still an art where even though the person is clicking pictures, but the way you click pictures and everything kind of gives a unique look to it. And yeah, so the second the second proposal that we're going to do is going to be a live it's going to be a physical project where we're going to have it in a public space. So what we're going to do is again take a photogrammetry capture of an entire space, and then we're going to like animate it, not animate, but kind of like just like explore the photograms, and let's just have some to create this messaging of like we call it shattered spaces, because in the pandemic it was like these spaces exist but they're without its people, they are shattered, and they were like
Yep.
public spaces. So that's something we are trying to create through this. But yeah, I think the way you apply these technologies is what makes it interesting. And I'm still thinking about commercial applications of these, but it's for now. I think it's probably restricted to like having people with forms in a virtual space. Right now, I can't really think of any other kind of more interesting application of volumetric videos. But I really love it. Like I'm fascinated by its uses, and I love using it in my projects. So as you can see, even on my website screen, I had to change it. I have like I have a volumetric capture of myself. So let me just like see what I can play around with it, and then just like, yeah. So like a self-portrait using volumetric videos. That's my self-portrait.
Amazing use of technology, I would say. And in future, I see these scanners, these cameras are gonna go better, and in future you might gonna get some sort of Wi-Fi kind of technology, which is capable of capturing the entire volumetric depth available within a room, because it's possible through Wi-Fi as well. And I'm sure the future deep learning models would be able to do it. Then we can get better photogrammetric objects and lesser time to create these 3D content, which means, for example, let's imagine before 2005, creating pictures and sending pictures to each other. But now every phone has a camera, and everybody has access to a camera all the time. You generate a 2D content all the time. You can do it anytime, right? But in future it will be as easier creating 3D content at any time. The phones are getting better. They're gonna get the 3D capturing technology, and easier ways to capturing technology, easier ways to clear, and AI based cleaning. So right now, whenever you capture the 3D photogrammetry, you have to do a lot of cleaning, and which is the essential part of because you want to cover only specific area and not the other thing which comes with it. So you have to do a lot of cleaning, a lot of smoothing, and there is manual work there. But in future the AI will be able to do all of this by itself. So I'm looking forward to that time when the photogrammetry gonna get much easier and much practical. It is practical right now. It just takes some more effort than plug and
Yeah,
play.
I think there's no direct pipeline right now from taking the output and then just like directly getting it. There's a lot of manual work, as you said, is involved. So I agree with that. I think but there has been considerable progress over some of my friends took another class in which they worked using apps. There were apps that could just let you take a photograph, like a scan of you, and then just create the mesh, and then you can just get it rigged in like no time and then use it. So that I thought was pretty solid for an app. I think that app closed though, because I'm not sure if it got the use it
Facebook
intended.
wrote a research paper which was the state of the art as far as I know. And what you can do, you can take a full 2D photo of yourself, and their deep learning model creates a 3D avatar of you without any code, without anything. Just plug in the very image, and it use all sort of deep learning and creates a 3D model from you. So using this, I think that the very process of creating 3D models is gonna get easier, and it takes a lot of efforts to create those 3D models, obviously, so yeah, I'm really looking forward that what technology could bring us and enhance more creativity than more, I would say, technicality involved in it, and the hustle involved in creating these sort of visualizations.
When you talk about like machine learning and stuff, I think that was a challenge when I took up a machine learning class, and I realized that it's good to have intermediate knowledge of coding, but what happens a lot of times for artists and designers that you don't have access to those things, or you don't have the kind of like the brain that thinks have that expertise. So I found that as a challenge. Like I had a lot of ideas for designing these things, but when it came to execution and front end development, I had my own limitations. But it's really promising. We use one of the machine learning packages called PostNet, which kind of uses a camera to detect the limbs of your body, and then it knows this is your wrist, and it knows this is your elbow, left elbow, and stuff like that. So what we did is this was a group project. It was like a week-long rapid. So what we did is we designed this tool which could just use gestures and send out message, because using postnet, so we did like namaste, and then based on like where your limbs are here and where this is, it detected that it's namaste, and it sent namaste the messaging to the other person, which I thought was really like a fun application, like a very interesting application of the technology. So I think you're definitely right. Like we had a lot of challenges developing that, but with support from like computer engineers and all, it's definitely possible with somebody who has more expertise in this field. But I hope that kind of gets, basically right now it's at a very nascent stage, and I hope that it develops to an extent that it becomes like an application that artists and designers can more easily use. At least have components that you can just plug in and develop stuff rather than writing the code from scratch.
Okay, so now it's time for me to learn a lot of things from you. So would love to ask your philosophy of design and visual motion, and would love to know in your perspective, what are the fundamental principles of a good design?
I think it's you cannot really apply like one set of principles to everything. You need to be flexible, and depending on the need of the project, be able to adapt. But a good design is possible with only good research. Like you need to know who are going to be your users and what are their needs, and empathize with those needs by conducting research and understanding what it is, and then designing for them would make the design more effective. Like I was designing for my thesis was, I was thinking my target audience was the youth of Indian descent. So use of contemporary technology made sense for that. If my target audience was a different member group, I would have to so that's why certain aspects of the culture I knew they would relate to, so I did not have to explain. But if it was for an audience, I would have to present it differently. So I think research about who's going to use your designs is very important. And honestly, like I learned animation and I moved to design. I did not really train to learn design, but I applied a lot of principles from animation to design as well. So I kind of transferred some of my knowledge from there, like having a good composition and having just that visual, creating that visual language through your design. So I think some of those things that I included, but I think one of the most important things is doing good research to understand what the need of the users is and who you're designing for.
Absolutely. And I can see how this transfer learning works, because as you started that, I need to first understand for whom I'm making this application and what's his need, what his ideas, what his perspective is. Yeah. I went with my knowledge and figured out, okay, that's almost the same thing what I do. Whenever I'm creating a project, I need to care about what platform it's gonna go, what's going to be its user, what sort of data bandwidth they're gonna use, and all these sort of things. So in more technical way, but it's the same observation. So would love to know how different is the traditional way of design, where you are literally I'm not in terms of design itself, in terms of art, I would say the traditional way of art, where you are designing for or creating art for a 2D screen, versus the newer way on in which you are working, designing the 3D elements and designing it for a person who can look anywhere in the very present scene in the context. What are the fundamental differences there?
I think first of all is the third dimension that is
Yeah.
different. So you need to consider the third dimension. And I think with 2D, a lot of times you can get away with but you can create a lot of exaggeration. For example, if you look at Tom and Jerry
Yeah.
and the kind of exaggerations they did. And I think I was working when I was working in one of the animation studios, they were proposing a 3D version of Tom and Jerry, and they had created like a pilot for it. And they were like, we hope we don't get this project because it's so difficult to have those same motions in 3D to show that stretch, and you literally move vertices of the mesh to show that effect and to keep it smooth and everything. It was very challenging. So I think 2D has its own advantages where you can have these exaggerations and you can really show like show stuff that's otherwise impossible. Like you cannot show a person's body becoming flat like Tom used to be like flat paper. Anyway, so that's an advantage. So it has its own advantages, and in 3D is obviously the third dimension. So you having that in VR is it's more immersive. It's if you're in the virtual space and you have the third dimension, you're walking around. It's just more real. So you can create those kind of like real life. Depending on how you design, like I mentioned, if you give the user the autonomy, depending on how much they can move, you can create a lot of effects. Like, for example, in the Draupadi sari, the user was mostly confined to that area and could explore, like touch. So it was the movement was that much. But the other one, the gateway to the world, I had the teleporting options with the hand controllers where you could actually like jump across from the sea to the land and then go through the gateway, walk through it, and have this feeling of like being like walking around in that space, navigating that space, climb on trees. At one point I could also like navigate around like different space. So depending on how you kind of use the movement aspect of it, you can create a lot of like that kind of an immersive experience.
Amazing. So we always talk about realism when we talk about virtual reality, and one aspect of that realism is interactivity. Not everything present in a scene could be highly interactive or interact in a certain way that, for example, a physical thing interact. So if I bounce it, it comes back. If I try to do that in Unity, if I try to do that in Unreal, it has its own challenges involved. That's why we sometimes keep the interactions limited. But when it comes to design, what is your fundamental way of sort of restricting these sort of interactions? Because obviously you have lack of time, lack of resources, you don't have unlimited time to make unlimited thing interactable. So how do you differentiate, or how do you, I don't know if this question gonna make sense or not, but what is your way of differentiating between interactable versus non-interactable objects, and what the effect they give on users psychology?
Yeah, so when I was doing, like, I had this challenge when I was doing the gateway to the world, that one in VR, where a lot of people were like, and I used to just start the application as to tell my users, be like, what do you want to do? You tell me. So, because I don't want to tell them you have to go that side, I want to see how effective it is and how they kind of like navigate in that space. So one thing was that that was simple was when you could teleport, the places that were not where you could not teleport used to show a red arc, but whichever were you were able to teleport, it showed a white arc, and it showed like an icon at the end, which was like footsteps. So like you can. So that's like standard UI in that a lot of the VR applications use. So I think that was a standard. But a lot of users were like, sometimes it was hard to understand that you're going from this real space to the imagined Indo-future space, because if you look at the aesthetic, the Gateway of India is a realistic 3D model, and when you go through the Gateway of India and you go into the Indo-futurism world and use the other version of Gateway of India, which is inspired by the design of a stupa, it was more like hand painted, which I painted using, I think, tilt brush. So I try to create that difference in the aesthetic, but it was a little more surreal. So I think like using visual cues like that, because I don't want to be like have a board that says, hey, welcome to the, because that would be very that would be the user experience. So I don't want to. So a lot of my friends were like, "Why don't you like give some kind of like written indication? Click here and this." And I said that beats the purpose of the design. So I think a good design would be incorporating them in the experience itself somehow, like I tried to do with the aesthetic of the Gateway of India, which was realistic, versus the gateway to the world, which was more kind of like hand painted, kind of this looks like fantasy, So I think trying to incorporate that in your design and art is really important, rather than just like having text be like, okay, now click this. No, so just try to have it as much as possible organically within your design.
Of course. So everything this whatever you explain comes in user experience UX, and would love to know for people who are watching this podcast. Most of them are already virtual reality creators or students interested in VR AR. So would love to know what are the good resources for learning this kind of UX principles where they can study more, because not everybody get opportunity to study it formally and apply it in their understandings.
I think there are a lot of resources online that I also refer to, and I just use YouTube sometimes, I want to just know this one thing. Like but like for example, Unity is open source, right? So you have like tons of people just sharing their knowledge, using community forums, and so there's a lot of knowledge out there. And like if you want to start like basic designing for UX, even like Figma is an online tool that is freely available. It has a lot of good resources to learn how to use Figma. So a lot of these applications are first of all getting web-based and easy to access for everybody. You don't need to purchase it. It's just there on the website. You can just for learning. They have a lot of resources. So I think YouTube and using the community forums to kind of understand, because that's how I solve most of my problems when I'm kind of like designing. And Figma has a lot of good resources to learn.
Of course, YouTube and Figma are the good way to go, and I totally agree. So would love to know, you mentioned about Tilt Brush, and I know I had the opportunity to talk with some of the greatest Tilt Brush artists, I would say, like Anna, like Rosie Summers. These people are like creating marvels and the worlds literally from your dreams into this beautiful tool. So what do you feel about these sort of tools, the design tools, which does let you design inside this virtual reality realm? What is the future of these tools, and do you have are these any way better than designing in 2D? Does this give any sort of advantage in terms of time or in terms of complexity or any kind?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of difference, but it both has its own advantages. Like if you're looking at professional 3D modeling tools like Autodesk products, and it's good if you want to create, if it's a large team and if it's a full scale production. But as an individual artist or individual designer, I realized how easier it was for me to prototype or mock something up in Tilt Brush. Just be like, this thing can be here. Even if I'm designing a scene, I can be like, this can be here, and then I can use that as a mock-up, like as a 3D mock-up or as a blueprint to move forward. So again, from Tilt Brush, there's no direct pipeline as such to get it into Unity. What I did was I uploaded it to Google Poly, and then I imported that using a plugin into Unity. And now I think they've closed Poly, so that's not an accessible option anymore. But yeah, and also like you can design it to kind of like view it as a 3D blueprint, but you can't really rig it in the same way that you would rig in a Autodesk product, because it has a pipeline. The advantage is that these are like established tools that have pipelines. So if you need it, depending on the purpose you need it. But it was using Tilt Brush was helpful for me because I didn't want to create like complex, realistic scenes. I wanted to create something that was kind of like hand painted. So that really worked for me. And I think a lot of these VR tools are very useful in prototyping 3D spaces in that way, because they are very handy and you can just like apply the same principles of painting on a canvas, just have a depth space, and then just kind of like apply that in the VR space. So I felt that was like something that I would otherwise create in like take 2 days to create in a software. I was able to create in VR in 2 hours because it was just like quick and there was no measuring tools. So that's another advantage or disadvantage. I don't. It depends on the use, but having like you don't have the measuring axis where there's 1 unit, 2 unit. You just kind of like gauge and then draw. So both have their own advantages. But I would prefer, I think for my practice, like VR art is more preferable rather than at this point.
Amazing. And it's really amazing to see the progress and rise of these sort of tools where you are actually doing stuff. And I have also encountered with some of the tools which lets you design and code and program your experience within virtual reality. So Rec Room is a very good example of this. Yeah. So in Rec Room, you can design how the room's gonna behave. You can design all these sort of behavior modules within virtual reality. It's amazing. I just loved it. So
That's
I'm
great.
gonna talk about this particular issue where the Indian parents are still hesitating to consider design or art as a career option. So Indian parents certainly come with this sort of mentality that either you become a doctor, engineer, or take a government job. All right, so these three good options that's why we produce so many engineers, right? So what is your opinion on this? What if you have to give a message to these parents who think that design or art or creative fields does not have anything in a commercial format? So what is your opinion and what is your message to these sort of thoughts?
Yeah, I can relate to it. It's not like I had lot of resistance from my parents. They were pretty supportive. Uh, yeah, they believed in me, I guess, and they believed like, and the belief has increased over the years. But because I have been able to find some success in what I'm doing. But it's true, like what the stuff you said, and um I think for me it took me like 5-6 years to actually be successful and for them to realize that this kind of an industry exists, and like just animation, like this kind of industry exists. And then okay, design, okay, why does Accenture need you? Because they need designers. Like the and I think they don't understand, but the 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 landscape is changing so rapidly now that they need to understand that definitely, like, it's out of touch to just think about these things as these fields, because a lot of my nephews and nieces have been reaching out to me to start a career in animation, and their parents, and actually their parents are also coming to me and they're like, can you give them some advice on this? So it's definitely changing. And um I feel really like I'm like, they're like, can you help me and I'm like, okay, like I didn't know it's like caused, so it has caused some kind of impact, so that is good. And my parents are also now like really proud of me and stuff, so like just they're like, okay, you can do it, like. So I don't know, that's my journey, but I think just like have faith in your kids a bit, because I think they are more in touch with what's happening around. And design, I believe that designers have a lot of demand, because everything, like a lot of things can be automated, but design thinking and just like creating good designs, I don't think cannot be automated. So designers will not go out of demand. I feel it will only increase. So I think it's a very promising field to be. And I've seen a lot of like courses. Like I think one of my niece is taking up communication design in Symbiosis, and they also have like a user experience design course. They have an animation film design course. So they're taking these courses seriously now. They have like 4 years degrees. When I was studying like 11 years ago, there was like bachelor is of science in animation. That's the only animation degree. The only other options available were like 6 month certificates and 1 year certificates in animation. Is the only animation degree. But it does require that amount of time and investment, which I think people have started to see now. So I think like for parents, please like believe in your children, and try to also like take interest and know about these things if they have interest in this. So try to like look at it and try to understand how it's valuable. I think that'll be good. And also, I guess, like, I don't know if there are like good career coaches in India, how that works, like career counseling and stuff. So probably like if you all have your doubts, you can also reach out to those professionals who can give you more insights into how it works. Because I definitely
Absolutely.
feel engineering is getting a little saturated. So, and there are some of them are, some of my relatives, they're engineers, but now they realize it's not something they're interested in, and there's interest. So please, like, let them
Yeah, I
decide.
think the fundamental way of choosing what you want to do is just look into yourself, that what you want to do, what you love to do, and just
Yeah,
do that. And
yeah,
everything could be big if you try with a very good business model, if you come up with right way to do it,
yeah,
and if you are good at it, obviously. So either do a job or do it yourself, create your own
yeah,
categories. Who's stopping you? And you also said it really correctly that previously the very internet and the very entire earth, I would say, was text oriented. We were producing a lot of text, but then we started with the help of so good 2D tools, we started creating a lot of images, and now we are also creating a lot of 3D images. So now the thing is, we are becoming more and more visual people. Now it's better to learn
yeah,
using visual things. For previously, I don't think any software must been coming up with some sort of video tutorial that how to use it, but now every software does require it, how the user gonna use their products. No matter what product is, you if you even if you're selling your shoes, you're gonna come up with some sort of video or animation or something which shows you how you're gonna do it. So that's how the industry is, and everybody require people who are designers, who can create art, who can write content. Even for example, copywriting is a very good
yeah,
career option, because you have to write a lot about the products, the very need of product, and again all these fundamentals work there too, that who's gonna be your the user, who's you have
yeah,
to have them in mind and then write about them, that what's gonna trigger them, what's gonna
yeah.
work for them. So amazing, you said it really correctly. So would love to ask you, since we already talked about having a career in design, but I would love to ask you that what in your ways, what is the idea of good design and art, and how to develop a very good taste in design? Because we can see I've personally worked with some of the designers who does not have very good taste of design, and I'm like, no, I cannot design at all, I cannot make an art, I cannot design a concept. Still I sit with them and say, no, this doesn't work for me. Okay, you have to do something about it. So what is your way of getting a very good taste of a design? And some design just click, it's just like, okay, this is so perfect. So what is the way and what is the very method of it?
I Okay. So again, I think like good design probably would be one that would
Very subjective talk.
work for its, yeah, and works for its users. So uh, so good research about who's going to use it. Like for some people, a certain color scheme, like a really hard color scheme, would work. For some people, it would not. Like depending on who's using it. For some demographic, big size buttons would like your clickables would be like really huge. For some of them, no, it would need to be like reduced depending on like their age and where they come from and everything. So just keeping in mind your users, I think, is very important to like have a good design. And resources, okay, so like I think like we can, if you want to start, you could just like start maybe a journal or a Pinterest board of the inspirations, maybe like these are good designs, I feel these are not good designs, and why, and then keep learning, understand the trends, and then see, and then probably like slowly develop that inside yourself. So just maintaining a journal or your like visual board or something, that like I think that's a good, or just like something interesting you see, just like bookmark it and keep it for later, and then be like, oh, I could probably like get inspiration from this into creating something which is like similar.
You said it really correctly, yeah, about Pinterest. I just love Pinterest. And before creating anything myself, I first love to look at what people have created. I see, no matter if I'm gonna take inspiration from them or not, but I just love to see what everybody is doing, what everybody is liking, what is current trend there, how these sort of things are designed, what is the current outlook, or so I have to do a lot of research. Yeah, you are very correct about it. I totally agree. So now let's come to the next question. Some good tips or for people who want to make their career in design, and especially in extended reality design, like with virtual reality, augmented reality. So would love to know.
I think for me it was like, because I was doing a master's level degree, I had to step out of India because they're like right now the resources like are limited, but I think it will come in over the next few years. Like when I started the animation, it was the same deal. There was not much seriousness around it in education, but it picked up. I think it should pick up over the next 4-5 years. And also I don't know. And the thing is with these technologies is that the investment is kind of steep, because you have to get the headset and you have to get the tools, and then you need a little bit of guidance to kind of understand basically from where to start. And then to learn the tool, it's easy, but to kind of how to think about designing for it. So I think for me, getting proper, like coming back to education for it, like I was working and they were also when I was working, they were also experimenting in XR design but I realized that there was a gap between my knowledge and like transitioning to this. The gap was a little wide. So I decided to pursue that in my education, and I think that was a good step. So maybe look at Coursera if you do not have like the budget or the resources to move out of the country. Look at courses on Coursera, because I found a lot of good courses that kind of at least get you started on how to think. And then if you feel it's something, because you need to also kind of discover if that's something you're interested in before you invest in a $800 headset and kind of start with it. So I think just take up a short course, maybe on Coursera or some of these others. I don't know, because I'm saying Coursera because I've taken a course like on some other design aspect in that. But try to look at that and try to take like a 1-month course and see how you like it. And then if it interests you, then invest in the tool, and then find like a proper like course, like a master's or something that teaches you for a year to kind of like understand and then apply it to your practice. Because I feel it's a little steep, the learning curve. It's not something that you can like very easily learn. But I knew, like, for example, I was kind of aware about VR art where they painted till brush, and I was like, that fascinated me. And I was like, okay, so most of it I just learned looking at YouTube tutorials, but I kind of designed my own class. So we didn't really have a VR class in that sense. So I approached a professor and I designed my own curriculum, and I said, I'll learn these things. So I kind of just did my own research and I created it, but I obviously needed the backup of the headset because I did not want to like invest in it at that point. I was a student. So I think just kind of, so I'm just like going round and round, but just like see if you're interested, if you really want to invest in it, and then see if you want to like take up a serious degree or something in it.
So I would love to go over your website one more time and talk about some of your things you have built, because you have built so many things and they are so beautiful that I have to talk about them, and I'm really inspired with some of them. So let me can you talk about each projects a little bit, especially this balloon in virtual reality design?
That was like my first VR project that was in the same possible futures class. So I was, again, it was like a this was before the pandemic, and my dystopic theme was that what if the air in the future is so bad that you need to wear your own mask and carry your own balloon. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, oh shit, like it was so felt like, and people started wearing masks and stuff. Anyway, so I was proposed, so it was more like a speculative design from the future. So it was
So in these
suppose this thing
balloons, you
exists.
are creating your own breathable air, oxy balloons. Yeah.
Yeah, it carries air for you. So, and they are also like branded. Like if you see, it's kind of like weirdly branded. They have their own brands, each balloon and all. So I created this whole VR environment. And when you wore the headset, you had your own balloon. You could actually see it. It was pretty dystopic. It was like little dark, but that was just like a concept, and it had this narrative of this future world. So it was, so I kind of like had designed and this was the concept sketch. So, and initially, because it was I was not fixed on using VR for this. I was probably going to use. I was thinking I could just use an actual balloon and make like a weird like mask that people can actually like look at physically. But because of the pandemic, I pivoted to making this in VR.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like you can see on the screen that it's like I'm
Yeah.
actually looking, and it's yeah.
It's a very
And you
good
could
idea.
see people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very
kind
good
of like-
idea. Would love to play this one as well.
So this was like the future. This is again in Unity. So we designed the assets in, I think mostly in Autodesk Maya, and then got them into Unity. And
Such a good concept. So let's talk about
Yeah.
some of the other projects. Okay, quickly.
I can talk about the physical. The bag one is interesting. The
Yes,
VR
which one?
art
The bag one.
is the third. No, the third. Yeah, that wearable technology. Yeah, I can talk about this. That's fun.
Wow, what this one does?
Okay, so this is a wearable technology class where you design for physical objects that are interactive and they have some purpose. So I can talk about the yoga mat first. So it was basically designed an interactive yoga mat that had touch points on it, and when you kind of touch like the hand, if you scroll up, like there are two projects in one. So this is the second one. Yeah. So
this one
was
is
the
yoga mat.
E-yoga mat. So it has touch points on the mat. So when you kind of if you touch the hands, if you touch the feet, if you stand on that, it completes the circuit, and it shows you the relevant yoga asana for it. So for now, I just use like the image, but you could also have like videos on how to perform this. So it's kind of interactive, and you don't really have to play a video in front of it, depending on what yoga you want to perform. If you touch the respective spots, it will activate that on the screen and tell you how to do it. So it was like an
Wow.
an interactive.
You are
step
not
introduced
just a
on-
designer, you are also an innovator and inventor, I would say.
Yeah, that's like my other interest, is just like, innovative designs. And yeah, I like to apply the stuff I've learned to just like creatively
Amazing.
imagine.
It's good.
And the angry bag is
And
kind of
angry bag.
interesting. As you
Interesting
might
name.
think, why it's an angry bag? Yeah. So we had to, the assignment was to create a wearable that has some emotion. So I used anger.
I'll play
And
it. Yeah.
so what I did was, came up with this design where this bag, if you overload it, it gets angry and it drops all the stuff down from the bottom. It opens the bottom flap and drops everything down. So I'll tell you how it works. But it's just like you put like a lot of stuff, and it's like if it's not, it kind of blinks and gives you a warning. It's like, hey, it's too much, and if you don't take out stuff, it's just like it just like opens the flap and drops everything down. So I think it was like an angry bag, which like a lot of people were like fascinated. They were like, oh, this is so cool, I want one. And I was like, so this is again a critical design. It's not like a practical bag design, but it was like I thought I was exploring what if the bag had an emotion and it didn't like, and it's So I built this whole bag using laser cutting, and then I think for the beta, I created a 3D model of it that you can just like print in your house.
Yep.
Not in your house, get it 3D printed.
So this
and
one
then
is
you could
3D
just
printed.
install it. Yeah, so you can just it was again, this was when the pandemic happened. So I was unable to actually create the beta. So what I did was I created a package which has the 3D model, it has the circuit diagram, and anybody could just like use this package and build one at their own. Like if they had access to a 3D printer, they could just build it.
Beautiful.
But
such an interesting concept. This is why I was so curious about it. I wanted to talk about each of these products. So what is this? Digital fabrication?
It's just mostly the 3D printing and laser cutting. So when I was kind of learning, so this is again like we had to, at the end of the class, we had to create
Looks
something
beautiful.
as a, it's like a something that you give to your classmates. So you have to create in multiple.
So you created these models in 3D and then 3D printed them.
Yes, I did.
It's a gift for people.
Yeah, this was a 3D model and then got it 3D printed. And this was just a laser cutting assignment, which was like cut on several layers and then put them together, and it's framed and put up in my house now.
Beautiful. And I guess this is related to COVID? Z-COVID?
This was just it was a motion graphics. So I also do motion graphics for freelance stuff. So this was something I did for Z TV, Z Entertainment. And I think I just animated the screens, but it's like a 30-second promo, which was about like
it's hard when you
COVID
can't step out.
India and the lockdown.
So allow us
this was like
to
a
step
promo I
in.
made for.
And we'd like to bring some friends over, if you don't mind.
So I do motion graphics and stuff.
No matter what, you'll always find us by your side.
Skill set, so.
Yeah, it's really good. Amazing. What is this one? You worked on this game?
Yeah, yes, I animated for this. When I was working at Reliance Media Works, I animated.
I've played this game and I loved this one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I played this game. I didn't know that you have worked on this. You worked on the animation part. It was beautiful. It was really similar to the movie, I would say, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these were like just the couple of characters I worked on was this excavator and I think Yuri. I think this is the whole promo I worked on. And you all had your finishing moves and stuff, so we were like, see the finishing move for this guy.
Yeah,
we were just like looking at the character.
So cool. I've seen that. That was really cool.
Yeah.
So much of good work you have done. This one is for Disney?
Yeah.
Disney show?
Yeah, it was Sheriff Callie's Wild West was on Disney Junior, so I animated for those.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful
it was
work.
for kids, but it's really cute character animations.
Train bandits.
This was a fun episode. I did the train bandits. It was literally like the whole episode was shot on a train.
You got
But in
yourself a
3D.
decision.
So
But it was
you
interesting.
in this one you also designed the characters?
No, there was a team. So this was like a proper production. So there was like a huge like team designing, rigging, and then texturing. And mine, I had to just animate it.
Lucky for you,
Characters and
I
props
happened to
and
come
everything.
along.
So, and then there was lighting. There was like a whole team involved in this.
Yeah. So this entire thing is hand animated, not mocap.
No, it's not mocap. It's done manually using I think Autodesk Maya.
Wow, a lot of
Yeah.
efforts I can see.
Yeah, a lot. It's a lot of work. Like it's to finish, barely able to finish like 1 second per day. It was literally long.
Okay, which one is this? Snippree.
Those are just, I was just like making 5-10 seconds Instagrammable posts that time. So that was like, I used to just make short stories like that of 5-10 seconds that I was posting when I started working on my portfolio. So that was that.
Some amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the best portfolios I have seen. Literally, I'm serious.
Thank you.
It's amazing work.
Thank you.
Thanks you so much. It's an honor to host you here. I had
my
no
God.
idea that you have worked on one of my favorite games, Real
Wow,
Steel.
I'm so happy to learn that actually,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
I
that
was
was
like,
my
I
favorite
didn't know.
because it was built in India, and I was really curious that at that time when I played this, I was really curious about what Reliance does, because I was then working in the game industry closely, and I was
Yeah.
following their work. Okay,
Okay.
so it's an honor and pleasure to host you, and yeah, this is literally one of my favorite talks, and I'm really happy to host you here. So thanks for your time, and I really loved it, and yeah.
I think thank you for this opportunity for me to connect with people back home and share my work and let them know that yes, designers have a bright future, and there's a lot of work. I think that's going to come up in the next 10 years. So please, like, keep at it. If you have those, if you have a passion for it, if you have like a passion for VR, if you have a passion for design, please, like, there are options out there. And also you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you have like questions and stuff.
Absolutely. So I'll share your LinkedIn profile in the description of this, and yeah, people will definitely love to ask you a lot of questions. So
Yeah, I'll be
thanks,
happy to guide them. Yeah.
thanks for coming on the show, and it was really awesome to host you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and all the best with all the great stuff you're doing with XRDI.